Hey! Welcome to the 10th lesson on C++. Throughout this lesson, we will learn what functions are, why they are necessary, and how to work with them in general. Let's start by understanding what built-in functions are. Functions can be thought of as small subprograms that you can define independently. In these subprograms, you can encapsulate repetitive code. So, every time you need to execute that code, you simply call the function, and the entire code gets executed. In fact, we've created functions many times before. We've used both external functions and created our own function, like main. Main function is a bit different from the functions we are going to create now because it's the main function from which our entire program starts. And remember, there should be only one main function in your program. However, we've also worked with built-in functions. For example, standard input and output commands are considered built-in. But, for now, we're not interested in built-in functions. Instead, we'll be creating our own. An important point when creating a function is that all functions must be placed outside of other functions. In other words, you cannot create a function within another function. So, let's create our own function above the main function. Now, let's create our own function. The first thing we need to specify is the return data type. We'll discuss return data types later in this lesson. For now, let's just say that our function will not return anything. To indicate this, we use the keyword void. It's another data type we haven't covered yet, and it's used for functions that don't return anything. After the data type, you specify the function's name. The name can be anything, just avoid using special characters. Let my function be called print, indicating something to print. Next, we open parentheses. In these parentheses, we can accept parameters, but for now, let our function take no parameters, so we leave the parentheses empty. Then, we open curly braces. These braces must always be opened, even if you only have one line of code. Inside the curly braces is the code that will be executed each time your function is called. Let's write something very simple here. Let's print the word hello. Now, if we run our program, we'll notice that nothing is printed on the screen. The reason is that functions themselves are not called automatically, they need to be called manually. We described the function, but we didn't call it anywhere. To call the function, simply write its name, in our case, print, followed by parentheses. Since we're not taking any parameters, the parentheses remain empty. Finally, end it with a semicolon. Now, when I run the program, we'll see that the text is displayed on the screen. In summary, our program starts with the main function. It then calls a function named print, executes the code inside that function, and the program finishes. The convenience of functions is that you can call them an unlimited number of times, and each time you call them, the code inside the function will be executed. Now let's discuss how to pass parameters to a function and then work with these values. First, let's define that our function will take only one parameter. Let it be an integer. So, in the parentheses, we need to write the data type first, which is int, and then the variable name. Let's name our variable number. Now, inside the curly braces, let's write the code that will be executed. Instead of the previous text, let's calculate a simple example to illustrate how arguments work. We'll calculate the square of our number by multiplying it by itself. For this, we write a print function, and we multiply the variable number by itself. After this, we just need to go to our main function and, in the parentheses, specify the number we want to pass there. Let it be the number 8. After this, we just need to run the program and make sure it works correctly. Now let's consider functions that will return some values. You may notice that our main function indeed returns the number 0. However, in C++, it is necessary to return the number 0 in the main program to indicate a successful completion. This is a mandatory rule for the main function. For all other functions we write, returning something is not mandatory. That is, you can return something as needed, or you can choose not to return anything. Let's modify our multiplication result so that it is not just displayed on the screen but returned, allowing us to store the result in a variable. Currently, if I try to store the result of the function in a variable, I'll encounter an error because the function doesn't return anything. However, I can easily change that. Here, I specify that my function will return something, and I choose a data type that suits our specific task. In my case, I take an integer and want the function to return an integer as well. Now, instead of displaying the result on the screen, I use the keyword return. This keyword allows us to return something from the function. Now, our print function won't display anything on the screen, but at the same time, it will perform the addition of numbers. This result will be returned, and we can store it in a variable called res_finally. We just need to display this variable on the screen and ensure that our program successfully runs and produces the expected result. In this lesson, we will explore the topic of function prototypes. Currently, our function is defined above the main function. If I try to cut it and place it below the main function, an error will occur when the project is run. This error occurs because the program reads our code from top to bottom. Of course, we would like to move it down so that if we have many functions, another programmer doesn't have to scroll through our code for a long time to reach the main function. To achieve this, we need to write function prototypes. Here's how it's done. First, move your functions to the very bottom. Then, copy the first line of each function and paste it at the very top, before the main function. Don't forget the semicolon. This way, you are providing a skeleton of the function. Now, when you run the entire project, it will still read from top to bottom. It will immediately see that there is a function declared here, even though it's not implemented yet. When it encounters such a function in our main function, it won't produce any errors. Now you can run the program and ensure that no errors occur. Well, our lesson is coming to an end. We have learned how to work with functions, how to create them, and in the next lessons, we will continue discussing functions and applying our knowledge in practice. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also like this video. Until we meet again, goodbye.